I'm going to start this off with a reminder. We're going to review tonight's games, then we do the power rankings, and early tomorrow morning I'll do the preview for the Sunday games. The first game starts at like noon my time, so it's not early enough that I want to be up till 1 o'clock in the morning tonight. Many apologies, but it's nice to get some sleep, even on a Saturday night and all that. Because I'm old. Let's be honest, I'm old. And at my age, it's important to get as much sleep as possible. Because, that's just the way that works. All right, first up was Boston at home against Colorado. Can I say thanks? And I mean that. Boston over the last couple of weeks has had some games where they're not playing great. And then they're bailed out. In the last couple of minutes, they have some goals. Whether it was the game against Minnesota or it was against Chicago, whatever it was, they get goals. They magically come through, and either they win in overtime or they lose it in overtime, but they keep their point streak at home alive. So this whole narrative of not losing during regulation continues, and I don't think it's helped them lately. Now, early shots favored the Avs, but because this is Boston at home, Wagner scores from Moore and Bjork at 13-14. So there it is right there. The whole idea of, okay, Boston's depth guys, and they get the early lead even though they don't necessarily deserve it. However, Nichushkin would score from Nieto and Jost at 17-25. Right after that goal goes in, Grubauer left the game. And he wasn't putting any weight on that leg. And Francouz went in to replace him. So hopefully Grubauer is okay. There was no shots against Francouz before the end of the second period. So if he was cold, we'll never know. In the second period, Cole would score from Barberio and Donskoy at 9-17. Overall, great road game for the Avalanche. The Bruins' effort started at around the 17-minute mark. And I mean that. They just didn't seem to be making much of an effort in that second period. However, Burakovsky would score from McKinnon and Donskoy at 18-21. The Avs had 5 shots in the second period and scored on 2 of them. So a lot of things that have been working in Boston's favor worked against them tonight. So it's 3-1 entering the third. And I put right up at the start of the third, Bruins can't come back here. There was no way that the Bruins were coming back in this one. The Avs took a penalty at 5:54. That was the game's first penalty. Pasternak almost had one on the power play. He wouldn't score tonight, so now he has 25 goals in 30 games. Yeah, that 50 and 50 talk's going to disappear now. It just becomes too difficult. Now you're looking at 25 goals in 20 games. It just gets too difficult. Graves came out of the box, got a breakaway, and ended up drawing a penalty because on that breakaway the Bruins had to kind of hold him up. I thought it was going to be a penalty shot. I was surprised it wasn't a penalty shot. It ends up being an extended 4-on-4 play, and then the Bruins get a late power play, but in the end, Landeskog would get a goal from Belmar in the empty net at 1957. And Colorado beats Boston in regulation both times they played them this year, first in Denver and now in Boston. Grubauer saved 3 out of 4. He's replaced by Francouz, who saved all 16 shots he faced. Halak saved 16 out of 19. Your 3 stars, McKinnon, Donskoy, and Wagner. Shots were 9-4 Colorado in the first, 5-4 Colorado in the second. Yeah, 12-6 Boston in the third as they woke up. Both teams had 20 shots in this game. Power plays, Colorado 0 for 1, Boston 0 for 3. And just worthy of note, there was a hit by Marchand, clean hit, and it knocked Makar out of the game. Makar appears to be injured, and we're not going to know exactly what his or Grubauer's status is until I think Monday might be when we hear about their status. But if you're an Avs fan, you have to be happy with the win and then look at those potential injuries and say, oh, not Makar. Sadly, yes, Makar. So, all right, moving along. Pittsburgh went into Detroit tonight, and they did what we had expected. It was a little bit more difficult than necessarily anticipated. So if you came into this game saying, well, Jari's better than Murray, I don't think you left this game looking at the stats and feel any different. The Penguins had some early puck control, and they would convert that into goals. First, it's Gensel from Letang and Malkin at 5:37. Ruhwedel then scores from Malkin at 17:24. It's 2-0 for Pittsburgh after the first period. Second period, early test was saved by Murray. However, Detroit gets power play. On said power play, Fabry would score from Larkin and Bertuzzi at 6:02. So Fabry continues to be a story for the Detroit Red Wings. Malkin, however, would answer from Gensel at 10:42. Can we have a conversation about just how fantastic Malkin's playing right now? That the injury to Sidney Crosby, allowing him to be the guy, seems to cause him to generate an absolute a plethora of points, as it were, which has kind of been my argument the whole time, that Evgeny Malkin, as a number one center, as the go-to guy on another team, would have probably had a lot more points than he has in Pittsburgh. And my statement a couple years ago that I felt he was a generational talent likely wouldn't be as argued. Sure it would. I don't make that. I don't talk about that anymore. But I have not changed my mind on Malkin. This guy is fantastic when he's on. There was a late power play for the Wings, and then a last-minute power play for the Penguins, which would not be fruitful. Third period, Cahoon scores for Marino and Pettersson at 1 minute and 38 seconds. And there you go. There's the game. It's done. It's 4-1. However, Hronek would score from Helm at 13 minutes. And then, with a power play, Larkin scores from Fabry and Cholowski at 16:56. What you doing there, Detroit? So they made it close. Ends up being an empty netter that finishes it at 19:51. It's Marino from Letang and Tanev. Marino with a goal and an assist tonight. Another solid performance for him. Malkin with 3 points. He is your first star. Gensel's second star. Larkin shows up as the third star. Murray saved 25 out of 28. Bernier saved 19 out of 23. And then Comrie came in and saved 4 out of 4. I don't think it matters who's in net for Detroit. I don't think goaltending's really been their problem. Shots were 12-7 Pittsburgh in the first, 13-9 Detroit in the second, and then 8-7 Detroit in the third. Final shots, 28 apiece. Power plays, Pittsburgh goes 1 for 2. Detroit goes 2 for 3. And there you go. So, pretty important win for Pittsburgh, in that this would have been an easy game to overlook. Would have been easy to have a letdown. Maybe that's what happens here in the last half of that third period. But either way, they hold on. They get the victory. And Pittsburgh moves along and continues to move up in the standings. As insane as that is, without like half their roster. All right, moving along. I don't know what happened here. See, this is a weird game. So Tampa Bay, again, they get outshot early. And San Jose should have had some kind of a lead at some point here, and they didn't. Johnson would score from Verhaeghe and Stamkos at 3 minutes and 10 seconds. The Sharks then got a 4-minute power play. Wouldn't score on it. The shots, though, were 11-5 San Jose after 12 minutes. So this, again, is one of those games Tampa's been playing, where they get outshot, outchanced, but their pucks are going in and the other teams aren't. Second period, the Bolts got a power play, and that's against the number one penalty kill in the NHL in San Jose. They wouldn't score on that one. Killorn, though, would score at 12 minutes and 29 seconds to make it 2-0. The Sharks ahead on the shots, not in the score. And they were well ahead in shots through 2 periods. Tampa Bay then gets a 4-minute power play. They would score on that. Stamkos scored from, really honestly, almost no angle at all. Hedman and Killorn get the assist. That's at 19:33, so that's the last minute. That's one of those dagger goals that just really, really hurts the team. Last minute, power play goal, and it makes it 3-0. So they'd outshot Tampa Bay badly, but through 2 periods, they're down 3-0. Third period, first minute. Hedman scores from Cirelli and Killorn at 52 seconds. Then Johnson scores from Stamkos and Verhaeghe at 3:51. Makes it 5-0. And then the only question left is, does Vasilevsky get the shutout? The answer is no. Vlasic would score from Erik Karlsson and Timo Meier at 15:44 to break up the shutout. However, there would be a power play goal, as Stamkos would score his second of the game from Killorn and Hedman at 15:36. And then in the last minute, just because they felt like it, Verhaeghe scored from Ruda and Gord at 19:35. Your final score is 7-1 for Tampa. I have talked about the San Jose goaltending numbers for over a year now. We're talking about them again. Jones, 17 saves on 21 shots. That's slightly over 800. Dell saved 14 out of 17. So, again, Vasilevsky saves 37 out of 38. San Jose needs their goaltending to steal them a game. They really do. That being said, it is Tampa. It's one of those games Tampa has where they run up the score. It makes their goal differential look fantastic. And then you look at the overall results and you go, eh. And I don't know when this is going to end. 3 stars are Killorn, Stamkos, and Verhaeghe. So Tampa, the team that just brings guys in and they magically know how to score. And Verhaeghe is another one of those guys that you may not have known who he was before the season started. Tonight he's a 3rd star. He had a goal and 2 assists. Looks pretty comfy, playing some pretty important minutes. Power plays, San Jose 0 for 4 and Tampa 2 for 4. So that San Jose penalty kill, which has been fantastic, takes a bit of a hit tonight. Shots were 15-10 San Jose in the first, 15-9 San Jose in the second. In the third, Tampa really runs them down. 19-8. The final shots were 38 apiece. But again, that doesn't really tell the whole story. So that's why I like to see the breakup period by period, because at the end of the night, it kind of evens out. But San Jose controlled the first 40 minutes, and then Tampa, sensing, hey, we can just go out there and get this on home ice, they did exactly that. So frustrating setback for San Jose. We'll see how they bounce back tomorrow in Florida. Speaking of Florida, Florida was at home against Columbus tonight. And if you're a Columbus fan, go ahead and skip. There's timestamps underneath. You might just want to skip this. Dadonov would score from Yandel at 18 seconds. And that's kind of how this game went. Merzlikins still doesn't get wins. Hasn't got a win yet in the NHL. Not one. And they were against Bobrovsky. The Panthers got a power play. They wouldn't score on that. Columbus got one as well. The Panthers, though, in that period, were just not getting shots. They're up 1-0. They're not getting shots, much like Tampa Bay being outshot and outchanced. And it was even a more dramatic difference in this game. And yet, both Florida teams with the lead after one. Second period, Panthers get a power play early, and the shots were evening up. It was 10-8 Columbus, 4 minutes into the second period overall in the game. So the shots were really evening up. They were 5-0 Florida at that point in that period. Bobrovsky was pretty darn good against his former team. Brown would then score from Barkov and Huberdeau at 8 minutes and 53 seconds to make it 2-0. And then the Panthers get a power play, and during that power play, Gavrikov, who didn't get a 3rd star or a mention, I think he should have for those shot blocks. Terrifying looking shot blocks. Columbus got a power play in the last minute. They wouldn't score on it. Third period, the Panthers get a power play that they score on. It's Connolly from Yandel. I know it says Connor, but it's Connolly. It's Connolly from Yandel. And so that's a power play goal. And that made it 3-0. So then, of course, at that point, the only question is, can their goaltender get a shutout? The same question that's being asked in Tampa down the street. And Gavrikov would score a goal from Texier and Anderson at 10:34, which is 4 minutes and 10 seconds earlier than the shutouts broken in Tampa. So that made it 3-1. Columbus pulls the goalie with 3 minutes left. Hoffman would score from Sevier at 17:37. That ends your scoring. Your finals 4-1. So both Florida teams come through tonight with victories, convincing regulation victories. Merzlikins 23 saves on 26 shots. Bobrovsky saved 33 out of 34. If he gets on a run, look out. 3 stars, all starting with B. Brown, Bobrovsky, Barkov. Had to start with a B or you're not allowed to be in the top 3. Power plays 0 for 3 for Columbus, 1 for 4 for Florida. Shots were 10-3 Columbus in that first period, 15-14 for Florida in the second, 10-9 Columbus in the third. Final shots 34-27 in favor of the Blue Jackets, who now are 11. I believe they're 11 points out of the playoffs right now. And once you get, like I've said recently, once you get past that 10-point mark, you're kind of out. And then it's a matter of what the general manager does from there. So right now for Columbus, they're settling into their spot in the division. And we'll see what ends up happening there. That being said, I need to change boards. Well, this one was kind of ugly, wasn't it? Minnesota in against Carolina. And I was thinking to myself, all right, so if Minnesota can come through and win in Carolina, the jump they're going to take in the power rankings will be even more dramatic because they'll get right back into a playoff spot. And no, Donato scored from Foligno and Brodin at 2 minutes and 21 seconds. That starts really well for Minnesota. Wallmark then would score from Dzingel and Trevor Van Riemsdyk at 9 minutes. James Van Riemsdyk got a couple of points today for Philadelphia. Trevor Van Riemsdyk decides he's going to get a point as well. There were 2 wild penalties on the same play. And on the same player. So when one guy's penalized for holding somebody and knocking him down, don't go over and trip him too. So 5-on-3. I was actually surprised they called both penalties. I thought the first one, yeah, you call it, and the second one you go over the guy and go, look, just knock it off. I don't want to make you guys down 5-on-3 on the same play. Just knock it off. But anyways, they said no. And with 1 minute and 9 seconds left in the 5-on-3, Svechnikov scores from Teravainen and Aho at 15:02. Now, they did kill off the 5-on-4 afterwards, and they got a power play, but their power play would not prove to be fruitful tonight. So it's 2-1 Carolina going into the second, and the Canes start really pouring on the shots late in that first and early in the second. Huge lead for them. Aho would score from Teravainen at 4:43, and that seemed to wake up Minnesota. So Zuccarello was denied by Mrazek. They buzzed around. They had a lot of chances, and then Zuccarello would score from Stahl at 9:08. So that made it a 1-goal game. The Wild got a power play, wouldn't score. The Canes got a power play, and they did. Aho from Teravainen and Stahl at 15:15. So it's 4-2 entering the third period. In the third, Edmondson would score from Aho at 12:24. And then Aho adds the empty netter at 18:39 because we're now in a world where you pull the goalie when you're down by 3. I don't understand, and I even heard during the Dallas game tonight, well, you know, the analytics would say it's time to pull the goalie with 5 minutes left in the game. No, just no. But anyways, fine. It just means that the scores end up looking a lot more lopsided than they should. In this one, though, it still would have been 5-2 even without the empty netter. Stalock, 34 saves on 39 shots. Mrazek, 22 saves on 24 shots. Noteworthy, Dubnyk was dressed tonight. He was the backup for Stalock. 3 stars, Aho, Teravainen, and Wallmark. Power plays, I believe anyways that Dubnyk was back. I know what Markstrom was back for Vancouver and was the backup, and I'm thinking Dubnyk was the backup. So you guys can correct me in the comments if you want. And there's not much point because I can't go back in time and reshoot the video. So yeah, 3 stars, Aho, Teravainen, and Wallmark. Power plays 0-for-4 for Minnesota, 2-for-3 for Carolina. The shots were 12-7 Carolina in the first, 15-10 Carolina in the second, 13-7 Carolina in the third, 40-24 in favor of the Canes. So like early last season, 40 shots for Carolina. The difference being they weren't winning those games early last year. This one, they won. So pretty good game if you're a Carolina fan, and for Minnesota, it's kind of a throwaway. And you have to look at that and go, all right, that's the first regulation loss in 11 games, so we're not going to panic. All right, next up, Toronto. We all saw this coming, right? If you're saying yes, you're probably lying. I don't even think the most ardent Toronto fan saw this coming tonight. And I'll also go further to say that there were likely some Toronto fans that were thinking, so how are they going to blow this? So early on, Hyman scores from Marner at 2 minutes and 50 seconds. Barbashev would follow that up with a goal at 4 minutes and 25 seconds, and then Matthews would score from Nylander at 6:51. And that was through the 5-hole. That was not one that Binnington should have allowed. Binnington did not have his greatest game tonight. And the Blues pressed for a tie, and they drew a power play right after that. But all I kept thinking was, this could be like a huge game in terms of goals. We could see like 8-7, 9-8, like. We had 80s day in Vancouver. I think there were other games that had 80s day in them as well. We see 8 goals in this one and 7 in this one at the end. Now, when the Blues had that power play I just mentioned, Hyman scores shorthanded from Engvall at 9:12. And you could just feel like Toronto just had it. And then they get a power play, and Spezza would score from Riley and Kapanen at 12:57. It's 4-1 Toronto in St. Louis in the first period. Jordan Binnington, out. Allen, in. This is the first time, they said the first time in Binnington's career as a National Hockey League goaltender, he's been pulled from a game. Toronto did that. The Blues got a late power play. They wouldn't score on it. However, second period gets going. Sloppy defense almost led to a 5-1 goal. So not a great night for St. Louis's defense. You can sort of look at Binnington's numbers tonight and say, oh, that's not great. But the defense wasn't great either. The Blues got a power play. Leafs got a power play. When the Leafs got theirs, Matthews scores from Marner at 9:29. And at that point, pretty much everybody is going, what's happening here? The Blues got another power play. Their power play wouldn't go anywhere. Toronto's was perfect, and St. Louis's didn't score a goal because we're in bizarro world, and that's what happened. Third period, Perron would score from Pietrangelo and O'Reilly at 2:02. And what's interesting is, the only other note I have on there is the Leafs were hanging on a bit. Once it becomes 5-2, almost any other team with a 3-goal lead in the third, you're looking at this and going, be fine. But the announcers, the Sportsnet announcers, are saying, if St. Louis can get one more, this is a whole new game. They're the defending Stanley Cup champions. Toronto, there's got to be some fragility there. And I'm thinking, this really shows how all of the struggles they've had this season have had an impact on the fan base and just on what people who watch these games and announce them expect. And I wasn't necessarily thinking all that much different. I was saying, if St. Louis gets another goal and makes this 5-3, there could be some panic on that Toronto bench. Now, Anderson would save 26 out of 28 in the victory. Bennington saved 7 out of 11. Allen saved 15 out of 16. So Allen's numbers are better than Bennington's right now. Go look them up. They're better. So we'll see what happens with their goaltending from here. Wouldn't that be interesting if Allen stole the starting job back? Even if it was just for a week. Be really strange. 3 stars were Matthews, Hyman, and Anderson. Not a St. Louis Blue in the 3 stars power plays. Toronto went 2 for 2. St. Louis 0 for 4. Toronto outshot them 12-8 in the first. 11-5 St. Louis in the second. And in the third, 10-9 Toronto. So Toronto not only get that win, but they did outshoot St. Louis in that third period. And while there were some moments where they were hanging on, they also drove the play a lot. And it is clear that under the new coach, under Sheldon Keefe, puck control is really important. They were outshot 28-27 overall. But when it was really important, they had the puck on their stick. So, good game for Toronto tonight. Moving along. Nashville and New Jersey. I don't know how I feel coming out of this game. This is a New Jersey team that doesn't win, that was on a back-to-back, and Nashville kept giving them chances. Kept giving them chances in this game to make it really interesting. First period, Carr scores from Hamhuis and Weber at 46 seconds. Then Fabro scores from Bonino and Smith at 2:13. And before the Nashville crowd can chant, "It's all your fault, it's all your fault," Bratt scores from Zaka and Vatanen at 2:45 to make it 2-1. And then before the crowd can really let that sink in, Zajac scores from Gusev and Coleman at 3:59. So, bizarre world. And much like this game, I'm thinking, how many magnets am I going to need for this one? The Devils got a power play. It turned into a 4-on-4. The Predators get a 5-on-3. The Predators would not score on that 5-on-3. Second period, there's an early power play for the Devils. That didn't go anywhere. Trennan would then score from Grimaldi at 5 minutes and 52 seconds to make it 3-2. Forsberg would score from Yarncroke and Yossi at 7:24. That's it. It's 4-2. You can bring it home. Power play. New Jersey scores on it. Palmieri from Hall and Vatanen at 13:07. It's 4-3 entering the third. Again, they kept letting him back into it. Early in that third period, Bonino scores from Fabro and Ekholm at 5:47 on an impossible angle. That's one of those goals that there's two ways to look at this. Either Bonino perfectly picked that corner, or Domingue was off in terms of where he was on that goal. He shouldn't have had that opening to put that goal exactly in that corner. So it depends on your point of view on that. Hall would then score from Hughes at 11:09 because they kept letting the New Jersey Devils get back into it. But at 12:44, Grimaldi scores from Ekholm. They pulled the goalie with 3 minutes left. There would be no empty netter, but there also would not be another goal by New Jersey to make it close. Domingue saves 31 out of 37. Rinne saved 29 out of 33. I didn't think either goaltender had a great game. 3 stars, Grimaldi, Bonino, and Fabro. Power plays, New Jersey 1 for 4, Nashville 0 for 6. The shots in this game, 13-11 Nashville in the first. Both teams had 12 shots in the second. 12-10 Nashville in the third. Final shots, 37-33 in favor of the Predators. And obviously all these teams were watching last night when we had really low-scoring games and said, all right, well, we can turn this around and fix this. Because tonight we had some goals. We had a lot of goals in a lot of games. And so for New Jersey, it's another loss. For Nashville, it gets them closer to that playoff spot because Minnesota lost tonight. So the hope that they're not going to fall too far out is still there, and they won a game that they really kind of had to. But again, it felt like Nashville was making it more difficult for themselves than they had to as well. So we'll see how things go from here. All right, moving along. Islanders and Dallas. This was a low-scoring game, as expected. But the funny thing is that there were goals in this. And in the first, I thought, oh, maybe this game's going to have a bunch. The Stars were up 10-6 in shots at around the halfway mark of that period. So I thought there were a lot of shots for a game involving two really good defensive teams. Cogliano would score from Alexiak and Heiskanen at 11:59. And then Radulov. Radulov on the power play from Klingberg and Janmark at 16:02. Sitting Radulov out, the message that was sent worked. 110% it worked. He committed tonight's game with the right attitude. And in the second period, at 3 minutes and 12 seconds, Gurianov scores on the power play. And who passed it to him? Radulov. Radulov and Perry get the assists on that one. And with 2 power play goals on 2 opportunities, that totally improves Dallas's power play percentage to crazy amounts. It's got to be like 13.5% coming out of tonight. Anyways, that was a very important goal. It made it 3-0. And it caused the Islanders to kind of chase the game. Radulov, I really thought this was his best game of the season. I don't know that it's necessarily close either. And yet, I'm pretty sure he had a hat trick this season as well, but I would say this game was better. This was more important. There were 10 minutes in this game, 10 plus minutes in this game without a whistle. And the funny thing is, when that happens during a game, you can tell the announcers in the back of their mind are thinking, okay, we got to get in these breaks. We have to do the ad breaks. They do ad breaks every 5 minutes. So when you're watching a hockey game, and if you're like me and you flip channels, you're going to notice the games all go to the most of them, if they start at the same time, will have commercials at roughly the same time. It's aggravating. It's like, all right, this game's on commercial, switch. That game's on commercial, switch. They're all on commercial because, of course, they all start at the same time, and they all go to commercial at every 5-minute interval. And that's when you get your ice crew out there to clean things up. And the ice crew, really anxious to get out there and clean things up in that game. But that flow to the game really helped Dallas. And it's weird because normally I'm seeing the Islanders doing that. Third period, the Islanders did their best to start really physically punishing Dallas every time they touched the puck. Johnston also went after Roman Polak, to which Polak kind of went, why? And it's funny because the announcers were like, yeah, why should he fight? And they're right. The last thing that you needed, if you're Polak and the Stars, is to fire up the New York Islanders and have a fight. And yeah, it just wouldn't make any sense to fight Ross Johnston as much as he wanted it. But Barzal would break the shutout at 15-27. And interestingly enough, Dallas is one of 8 teams in the league that does not have a shutout this year. The fact there's 8 teams in the NHL that don't have a shutout this late in the year tells me that we are really out of the dead puck era completely. This season is different. Barzal, though, from Taves and Mayfield, ruined the night for Stars fans who wanted to see a shutout. The goalie gets pulled with 2 minutes left, and then it looked like Leddy got hurt. Wasn't putting any weight on one of his legs there, and so potential leg injury with Nick Leddy. We'll see if anything comes out of that or if he misses any time. Grice saved 34 out of 37 in the loss. Bishop saved 34 out of 35. Your 3 stars, Radulov, Bishop, Cogliano. Dallas wins 3-1. Power plays, the Islanders 0 for 1. Dallas 2 for 2. Shots were 16-11 Dallas in the first, 13-10 Dallas in the second. In the third, 14-8 for the New York Islanders. Final shots 37-35 for the Dallas Stars. In what was a pretty fast game. They wanted to get it done. Okay, we've got to get this done. We have things to do. Let's wrap it up. We're just no whistles, no offsides, no icings, no throwing the puck over the glass. Just keep playing, and it worked. They kind of out-Islandered the Islanders, is what happened with Dallas tonight. They're like, all right, we know how you guys play. We can do that too, and they did it very well. All right, that being said, I need to change boards one last time. All right, here's the main event. It's Matthew Tkachuk on one side of the ice, and it's Drew Doughty on the other. And tonight, They had a grand total of 0 penalty minutes each. But if you're going to go, so it was a dud then. No, it was not. Department of Player Safety may very well be getting involved with tonight's game. First period of what was the 14th matchup between Doughty and Matthew Tkachuk. Both teams were playing tough lineups, and that affected the game tonight. If you were a heavyweight for either team, you were in the lineup. Now, the Kings got the first power play, and they scored on it. Kopitar from Doughty at 11:09, and it was right off the faceoff, and that was the third shot on Talbot. And, watching it, I was like, uh-oh, that's not good. It wasn't a bad goal, but if Talbot's allowing a goal early, and if it gets in his head, this could cascade. The Flames got a power play. They wouldn't score on that. And then the Kings got their second power play. And this is amazing because their power play's been terrible all year. Doughty scores on the power play from Brown and Kopitar at 14:43. That was their fourth shot. So that's 2 goals on 4 shots. And on some level, you have to look at that and go, oh, no, not this. Because, again, both of these goals were very good goals. I don't want it to seem like I'm burying Talbot in this. But the fact that he's down 2-0 and he's allowed 2 goals on 4 shots, that gets in his head at all, this can definitely cascade. And LA had beaten Calgary twice coming into tonight. Now, there were a couple of nice saves by Talbot shortly thereafter, and then the Flames got a power play. And look at that. Lucic with his second goal in 2 games from Backlund and Ryan at 18:14. It's a power play goal, and it's the 200th of his career. I remember late last year when he was at 198, and there were remarks about whether or not he'd actually hit 200 or how he'll just retire first. You know what? Lucic has been playing really well lately, and his goal scoring is picking up. His overall play is picking up. So we enter the third period. Ronaldo scores from Dubé and Reeder at 3:01. That tied the game. The crowd really enjoyed seeing Zach Ronaldo score a goal. Monahan would then score from Goudreau at 11:46. That makes it 3-2. Now, it's a physical game. These guys don't like each other. And it boils over because Ronaldo drilled Prohorkin. Just drilled him. And the initial replay, I thought, I don't know. But they looked at it during the second intermission. And, listening to them talk about it, and I was on the fence. But, yeah, it is a high hit. He does come up into it. And he has a lengthy history of suspensions. So, Zach Ronaldo, if they can find an angle that shows the principal point of contact is the head, or that he meant to go for the head. The other problem is that after that play was done, they go to a TV timeout. During the timeout, Ronaldo and Clifford start chatting and skating down the ice. So they're just sort of drifting into the other zone, and they drop the gloves and start fighting. Immediately, the linesmen jump in. So, yeah, Ronaldo, I understand this is what he does. This is his job, and he got a goal, and he picked a fight, and he almost knocked Prohorkin into the middle of next week. Prohorkin stayed in the game, but I do think that combination, Department of Player Safety has to do something. Look, if Brady Tkachuk gets a fine for that little bit that he did at the end of that Philly game, and I'm not saying that it wasn't something that the NHL Department of Player Safety should have at least looked at, but compared to what Tkachuk did, Ronaldo, it's a whole other level. And not only that, but Ronaldo has a very lengthy history. So we go into the third period with Ronaldo and Clifford both having been kicked out of the game. And 3-2 lead. Campbell denied Lindholm. Fantastic shot by Lindholm. And then Dubé would score from Ryan and Lucic at 1:29. Shortly after that, Talbot denied Sean Walker. Great shot by Walker. But Matt Roy would score from Prohorkin and Lewis at 5:24. So this game stays close. They can't distance themselves too far from the Kings. They scored 4 in a row, but not too long after, the Kings scored to let them know, hey, we are still here and you're still on the clock. There were no penalties for Doughty or Tkachuk to that point, and I made a note of it, and I kept an eye on them when they were on the ice. And yeah, there were no penalties. There was one play where they called icing on the Flames. Tkachuk really beat that out. I am surprised they called that icing, because to me, Tkachuk beat him to the line there, that line where they call icing, and I didn't think that was an icing, and neither did Tkachuk, clearly. And then Doughty and Tkachuk kind of went at each other down the ice. But there was nothing physical between them. It was just a lot of chirping. Campbell then stopped Ryan, which was important because they were only down by 1. The Flames then got a late power play, and they used that to kill most of the rest of the game. And it was pretty smart. Not only that, but on the delayed penalty, Gaudreau just hung out behind his net for about 10-15 seconds, along the lines of, I don't really have to do anything. As soon as you guys touch the puck, it's a power play. So if I stay behind the net, I can kill a lot of the clock here, and we win the game. So very smart play by Johnny Gaudreau. The Flames end up holding on. They win it 4-3. Campbell saves 26 out of 30. Talbot saves 30 out of 33. Keep in mind, he allowed 2 goals in the first 4 shots. He had a pretty good night. This is his first win in about 2 months. 3 stars are Dubé, Lucic, and Kopitar. So Dubé, who needed to get it going, has. Lucic has got it going as well. And Ronaldo could be going to another suspension. So everything that you needed, including a Talbot win, is there. 2 for 3 was the LA power play. 1 for 4 was Calgary's. Your final shots: 12-8 in the first for Calgary, 11-10 in the second for LA, 14-8 LA in the third. Final shots were actually 33-30 for LA. They made it close. They made it interesting. But the other thing is, when Doughty scored his goal in the first, I noticed he went into that corner again and gave them the KMA. Was what I was like, all right. He said KMA. All right, that's standard Doughty. And he mentioned how much he hates Calgary and how much he loves playing in Calgary and winning in Calgary. So I don't know if after this game he said a team like that should beat a team like ours, but it wouldn't necessarily surprise me if he did. But for the Kings, this is 11 straight losses on the road, which is tying a franchise record for the most losses in a row on the road. And so for LA, the rough season they're having just gets rougher. I've said it before, I'll say it again. It doesn't matter how good you are at home. If you don't win anything on the road, you're not making the playoffs. You're not even getting close. That being said, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video, and yes, the power rankings are next. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.